Then we wait to middle school, and when you interview teachers, as we've done over the last 5 years, it's always interesting because, you know, elementary goes, oh, thank heavens we've moved them on to middle school. It's no longer our problem. And then the middle school teachers say, well, you know, it's really all the elementary school teachers' faults. If they'd done more with the kids, we wouldn't have these problems today, but we're moving them on to high school. And therein is those kids get moved along the continuum, and what happens? Their problems magnify, and they end up in juvenile justice. And oftentimes in juvenile justice, they never get the interventions they need to give them a chance to avoid, if you will, the adult system. I mean, in one state, as I shared that one, but there was another state that actually, one of the researchers that I worked with around the country, his daughter ended up in their state's juvenile system through some of her acting out. And he called me and he goes, when I started investigating what is my daughter going to get while she's there, she got housing, she got meals, she got housing, she got meals, and then they released her. And he goes, I couldn't believe it. What's the point of that? Well, it's removal. I mean, there is some evidence removing them from the situation does decrease that, but the long-term effect is what? What do you think she learned from that?
Criminal behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in fact, what you really learned is what? If all else fails, I can go find a place to eat.
3 hots in a cot.
Yeah. I mean, it's really kind of interesting.
Representative.
Thank you, Doctor. One of the things I was wondering about is enhancing the credibility of the criminal justice system. Does that make a difference if people really have an idea what's going to happen? I mean, I know like a lot of times you do a mandatory sentencing, people think that it doesn't apply to me because I'm not going to get caught. Other people, I think it does apply to. In Oregon, we have for violent crimes, we have mandatory sentencing, and I'm a retired police officer, and I countless times have people say, I'm not a Measure 11 criminal, I'm just stealing. That they knew there was a certainty that if they crossed that line, they were good, you know, that was going to be the real time. It wasn't going to be playtime anymore.
Yeah.
So anyway, just if the credibility of the system is there, I mean, does that help reduce?
The research, I'll say, is mixed to really moving away from mandatory sentencing to give more flexibility, if you will, to basically what my vernacular be screen and assess. Where do you put people? Because in one sense, what do we hope for them to gain? Okay, so it's kind of like if an offender actually is sentenced to 6 months versus 5 years, okay, and he or she gets it in 6 months, that's good for us, right? Why would we want them to sit around with those people for 4.5 more years? I mean, on the other hand, kind of in response to your question, what I've always considered is when we began creating what I'll call the use of the right tools to help people, right? Oftentimes, as the gentleman pointed out at the end, is when you say, well, we have these programs, would you like to participate, right? And we have some clientele, and they certainly have mixed motives on why they want to engage, but they engage and something positive happens versus the offender who says, so you're offering me 5 years? Cool, I can do 5 years stand on my head, and I don't have any parole. In fact, I've had offenders in some states refuse to come out on parole. They want to flatten their time because they don't want to deal with supervision because they're going out and commit crime again. They don't want anybody looking over them. Now, those are the people that, in one sense, instead of doing a determinate sentence, maybe it's a conditional sentence on you engage in a program of change. We can measure that program of change. Maybe you can get out, as opposed to you do 5 years or 3 years or 10 years or whatever, because what happens is, I doubt you've been behind the bars much, but what happens is people learn how to adapt to their lifestyle. And what that means is they do whatever it takes to survive in that situation there. And so in one sense, if you sentence me to 10 years and I'm on the line between, you know, what brought me to the party and not, and I'm going to spend 10 years with the criminal people, there's not a lot of what I'd call pro-social things happening in there.
I was kind of just a little bit on the other edge of where I'm going to say I don't want to do 10 years, so maybe I'll not do those certain crimes that have the certain.
Well, unfortunately, that makes sense to us because we're normal, ordinary, responsible people. We're NORPs. These clientele are not, unfortunately, and in fact, they almost revel in, initially from some of the gang behavior, if you read the research on that, they revel in the fact of, yeah, they're going to give me 3 years for this sentence. I'm pretty cool, right? So it's a different mindset and it's a different personality. As I said, these personality disorders, the punishment actually makes these folks worse. So in fact, we're basically, in one sense, creating environments where these folks harden more against our pro-social settings. So when they come out, they're more likely to commit crime. We're actually setting the stage and tone against us where, frankly, what we've learned in some of the drug court research is this: less is more. In fact, what we found is, you know, typically I was meeting with judges who were sentencing people for a dirty urine screen to, you know, 3 weeks or 4 weeks in jail. And we actually looked at the results of comparing that same outcome, if you will, on change in behavior to can we sentence them there for a Friday night or a Saturday night and have the same effect? And the short answer was yes. And we thought, wow, isn't that amazing? So when we interviewed the people, here's what they said. In their mind, Friday and Saturday night is sacred.
That's right. That's right.
They'd rather do 5 days in jail. They'd rather do Monday through Friday, be released on Friday evening so they could go out. And I'm sitting there going, holy smokes, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to do 5 days. I wouldn't want to do 2 hours. But here, these people are saying, yeah, you know, 4 or 5 days is cool as long as it's not on Friday and Saturday. Sunday through Thursday, lock me up, it's cool. I mean, you're going to take care of me. I don't have any bills. I can eat. And in some jail settings, what they talk about is, I don't know if you saw some of that stuff in Baltimore on some of the research studies that they did up there on the Baltimore jail. Everybody comes in and goes, hey, King, good to see you. I'm doing 6 months. What you got this time? I mean, everybody knows everybody. And what that tells you is what? Who knows what's happening in your community, no matter where they are? They do. When I want to find out what's happening in the community, I don't go ask the police. I go ask an offender. Because they know everything, unfortunately.
Well, they had problems in Multnomah County with weekend sentencing because people would show up drunk or loaded. When they tried that for a while, then the judges started saying that's not working. The jailers complained. I mean, the justice system, that's been a few years ago, so I don't know if that's changed, but they were very reluctant to say come in on Friday night because people just get drunk and show up, and then they had those problems to deal with.
Well, you know what's interesting about that, though, is probably that was an indicator of what? An Axis I substance abuse issue of if I'm willing to come to court or I'm willing to come to jail high or under the influence of something, what I'm really signaling to you is I'm clinically, chemically dependent, I'm unable to control my use, and locking me up is interesting. It's going to protect the public for that brief period of time you lock me up. But what that really communicates is I'm going to go out and do that again. Because what we now know about chemical use, I shared this with somebody, if you have 2 drinks a day, which is moderate alcohol consumption, and you drink 2 drinks a day for 30 days and stop drinking, do you know how long it takes your brain to come back to normal? 9 months. So oftentimes our programs are, and for our clientele, because of the nature and the quantity and quality and volume of substances they abuse, we're talking about a minimum of 2 years, upwards of 10 years before all of their neuronal processes return to normal. So in one sense, we're not going to contain people. So what we have to do is make sure we use program tools that give them the best chance of succeeding in those situations. I mean, those people I'd have gone, shucks, we need to put those people immediately in treatment, and if they don't respond, then we start talking about the other sanctions. Because, once again, their symptoms are controlling them. They're not controlling their symptoms.
Dr. Robinson, I want to thank you for being here this morning. We are kind of running behind.
Sorry.
No, that's us. That's us. So thank you very much. And if there's other questions, if you can get them to staff, and we'll get them to Dr. Robinson. And thank you very much for the presentation and the PowerPoint.
Thank you for having me.
Next item on our agenda is a presentation from Richard Stroker.